I was in my home office reviewing insurance fraud cases when I heard my wife Elena on the phone in the kitchen, speaking in hushed, urgent tones that immediately caught my attention. As an insurance investigator, I'm trained to notice suspicious behavior, and something about Elena's secretive conversation triggered my professional instincts. "The policy is worth $2.5 million, she was saying quietly. "Richard's health issues make it look natural, and the investigation won't be a problem because I know exactly how they work. My name is Richard Cooper, 44 years old, and I was about to discover that my wife of 12 years had been planning my murder with her lover to collect my life insurance. Elena and I had been married since 2011, building what I thought was a solid partnership while I worked as a senior fraud investigator for Metropolitan Life Insurance. I specialized in suspicious death claims and had developed expertise in detecting insurance murders, cases where spouses kill their partners for policy payouts. The irony of my situation wasn't lost on me as I listened to Elena discuss the accident they were planning for me. "Richard's job gives us the perfect cover," she continued. "Everyone knows insurance investigators have dangerous work and make enemies. His death will look like retaliation from someone he caught." I activated the recording app on my phone and moved closer to the kitchen doorway, using investigation techniques I'd learned from 15 years of fraud cases. "Marcus, the timing has to be perfect," Elena was saying to whoever was on the other end. "Richard's been having chest pains lately, probably stress from work. The coroner will assume heart attack, especially with the drug combination we discussed." My blood ran cold as I realized Elena was talking to Dr. Marcus Webb, our family physician and my supposed friend for over a decade. They weren't just planning to kill me. They'd been systematically laying groundwork for months, using my trust in both of them to create the perfect murder scenario. Elena Vasquez had been working as a medical billing specialist when we met 13 years ago at a conference on healthcare fraud prevention. I'd been presenting a workshop on insurance scams in medical settings, and she'd approached me afterward with intelligent questions about detecting fraudulent claims. "Your presentation was fascinating," Elena had said during our first conversation. "I work in medical billing, and I see questionable practices sometimes. It would be helpful to understand the insurance investigation perspective." Elena had been attractive, professional, and genuinely interested in my work, a refreshing change from women who were put off by the investigative nature of my career. "Most people think insurance investigation is boring paperwork," I'd told her during our early dating period. "It's nice to meet someone who appreciates the detective work involved." We'd married 2 years later, and Elena had been supportive of my career advancement from junior investigator to senior fraud specialist handling complex cases involving suspicious deaths and elaborate insurance schemes. "Richard's work is important," Elena would tell friends when they'd ask about my job. "He protects people from criminals who exploit the insurance system." Elena had seemed proud of my reputation in the industry and had often attended work functions where colleagues would praise my expertise in detecting insurance murder plots. "Cooper has solved more suspicious death cases than anyone in the department," my supervisor would say during annual reviews. "His understanding of how killers try to make murder look natural is unmatched." Over our 12 years of marriage, I'd investigated hundreds of cases where spouses had killed their partners for life insurance money, studying every method, every cover story, and every mistake that had led to their eventual capture. Insurance murderers always think they're smarter than the investigators, I'd often tell Elena when discussing difficult cases, but they underestimate how thoroughly we analyze suspicious death. Elena would listen attentively to my case stories, asking detailed questions about investigation techniques, evidence gathering, and what mistakes criminals made that exposed their schemes. "How do investigators determine if a heart attack was induced by drugs?" Elena had asked after I'd described a case involving Digelis poisoning. "What makes investigators suspicious about accidental deaths?" she'd inquired during another conversation about a drowning case that had turned out to be murder. I'd assumed Elena's questions reflected genuine interest in my work rather than research for planning my own murder. Dr. Marcus Webb had become our family physician 5 years ago, when Elena had started having recurring headaches that our previous doctor couldn't diagnose effectively. Webb is so thorough, Elena had said after her first appointment. He really listens and takes time to understand what's wrong. Marcus had indeed been an excellent physician, treating both Elena's headaches and my occasional work-related stress symptoms with apparent competence and genuine concern for our health. "Richard, you need to manage your stress better," Marcus would tell me during checkup. "Insurance investigation work can be emotionally demanding, and I'm seeing physical symptoms that suggest you're not handling the pressure well." Marcus had prescribed mild anxiety medication and had recommended lifestyle changes to help me cope with the demanding nature of investigating insurance fraud and suspicious deaths. "Dr. Webb really cares about our health," Elena would say after our medical appointment. "It's rare to find a physician who takes such personal interest in his patients' well-being." Over the past year, Elena had been encouraging me to increase my life insurance coverage, claiming she was worried about financial security if something happened to me. "Richard, your work involves investigating dangerous criminals," she'd argued. "You've testified in court against murderers and fraud rings. What if someone decides to retaliate?" Elena's concern had seemed reasonable, especially given some threatening letters I'd received from defendants in cases where my investigation had led to criminal convictions. "Elena's right," Marcus had agreed during a routine checkup. "Your work creates enemies, and your family needs financial protection if something happens to you." With both my wife and my doctor recommending additional life insurance, I'd increased my policy to $2.5 million, more coverage than I'd normally consider necessary, but justified by my high-risk profession and Elena's concerns about our future security. "This gives me peace of mind," Elena had said when the new policy was finalized. "I know you're protected against retaliation, and our family is financially secure no matter what happened." But over the past few months, I'd started noticing changes in Elena's behavior that had triggered my investigative instincts. Elena had become secretive about her phone calls, taking conversations in private and quickly ending calls when I'd enter the room. She'd also been asking unusual questions about my work schedule, wanting to know exact details about when I'd be home, when I'd be traveling, and which cases I was working on. "I'm just trying to plan our schedules better," Elena would explain when I'd ask about her increased interest in my daily activities. Elena had also been encouraging me to work longer hours and take on more complex cases, claiming she was proud of my professional success and wanted to support my career advancement. "Richard, you should pursue that promotion to department supervisor," she'd suggested recently. "You're the best investigator they have, and you deserve recognition." But Elena's encouragement had felt manipulative rather than supportive, as if she was trying to increase my stress levels and time away from home for reasons that weren't about my career success. 3 weeks ago, I'd started experiencing chest pains that I'd attributed to work stress and irregular eating habits during busy case periods. "Richard, you need to see Dr. Webb about those chest pains," Elena had insisted. "They could be serious, and you can't ignore potential heart problems." Marcus had examined me thoroughly and had prescribed medication for what he diagnosed as stress-related cardiac symptoms. "Your blood pressure is elevated, and you're showing early signs of heart disease," Marcus had explained. "This is common in high-stress professions, but we need to monitor it carefully." Marcus had prescribed a combination of medications for blood pressure, anxiety, and cardiac support, warning me about potential side effects and drug interaction. "Be careful about mixing these medications with alcohol or other drugs," Marcus had cautioned. "The combination could be dangerous if not managed properly." But as I listened to Elena's phone conversation, I realized that the chest pains, the medical examinations, and the prescription medications had all been part of a systematic plan to create a plausible cover story for my murder. "The drug combination will mimic a natural heart attack," Elena was explaining to Marcus over the phone. "Richard's already established a medical history of cardiac stress, and the autopsy will show the exact medications you prescribe." Elena and Marcus had been using my trust in both of them to create the perfect medical murder scenario, exploiting my existing health concerns and my physician's legitimate prescriptions to mask their planned poisoning. "His work stress provides the perfect motive for natural death," Marcus was apparently responding, though I could only hear Elena's side of the conversation. Everyone knows insurance investigators face retaliation risks. Elena laughed quietly. Richard's own expertise in insurance murder cases will actually help us. He's told me exactly what investigators look for, so we know what to avoid. I realized that every case story I'd shared with Elena, every discussion about investigation techniques, and every explanation of how insurance murderers got caught, had been giving her a blueprint for committing the perfect insurance murder. Elena had been studying my professional expertise for years, learning exactly how to kill me in ways that would avoid detection by the same investigation methods I used to catch other insurance murderers. The $2.5 million policy will be worth the wait, Elena continued. And once Richard's gone, we can finally be together without hiding our relationship. Elena and Marcus had been having an affair while planning my murder, using their intimate knowledge of my health, my work, and my trust in both of them to create an elaborate scheme for collecting my life insurance. But Elena and Marcus had made a critical error in their planning. They'd underestimated my professional skills, and had grown overconfident about their ability to deceive an experienced insurance fraud investigator. I'd been recording their conversation, and Elena's detailed discussion of their murder plan was providing exactly the evidence needed to prove their conspiracy and protect myself from their scheme. Over the following days, I used my investigative expertise to gather additional evidence of Elena and Marcus's affair, and their plan to kill me for insurance money. I discovered that Elena and Marcus had been having a relationship for over 2 years, meeting regularly at hotels and Marcus's office while maintaining their professional and social facades in front of me. Elena had been researching insurance murder cases through online legal databases, studying successful and unsuccessful schemes to understand how to avoid detection. Marcus had been gradually adjusting my medication dosages and combinations to create a cocktail that could be fatal if combined with additional drugs that wouldn't show up in routine autopsy testing. Most damning, Elena and Marcus had been practicing their reactions to my sudden death, rehearsing emotional responses and alibis that would deflect suspicion during the insurance investigation they knew would follow. They'd even researched which of my colleagues would likely be assigned to investigate my death, planning how to manipulate the investigation process using inside knowledge of insurance fraud detection method. Richard always said that investigators look for financial motive, opportunity, and suspicious behavior, Elena had written in emails to Marcus. We've eliminated all 3 factors through careful planning. But Elena's confidence in their scheme was based on a fundamental misunderstanding of how insurance investigations actually work. While Elena had learned about investigation techniques from my case stories, she hadn't understood the sophisticated surveillance and forensic methods that investigators use to detect elaborate murder plots. More importantly, Elena had never suspected that her own conversations were being recorded by the same husband she was planning to kill. I presented my evidence to the FBI and the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, providing recordings, financial records, and documentation of Elena and Marcus's conspiracy to commit insurance murder. This is one of the most sophisticated insurance murder plots we've seen, the lead investigator explained. Your wife and Dr. Webb had planned every detail to avoid detection, but they underestimated the evidence-gathering capabilities of their intended victim. Elena and Marcus were arrested simultaneously, preventing them from coordinating their stories or destroying additional evidence. During questioning, both initially denied the conspiracy, claiming that Elena's recorded phone conversation had been misunderstood, and that Marcus had been providing legitimate medical care. But confronted with extensive evidence of their affair, their research into insurance murder methods, and their systematic preparation for my death, both eventually confessed to the conspiracy. We never intended to go through with it, Elena claimed during her confession. It was just fantasy planning that got out of hand, but the evidence showed that Elena and Marcus had been actively implementing their murder plan, with my death scheduled to occur during my next cardiac event, that Marcus would have triggered through drug manipulation. Elena was sentenced to 25 years for conspiracy to commit murder and insurance fraud. Marcus received 30 years due to his abuse of his medical license and his violation of the doctor-patient trust relationship. Both were ordered to pay restitution covering the costs of the investigation, and were permanently barred from any involvement with insurance or medical practices. The experience fundamentally changed my understanding of trust and the sophistication of criminal conspiracy. Elena had spent 12 years building a marriage with me while simultaneously studying my professional expertise to plan the perfect murder. Marcus had spent 5 years serving as our family physician,
while using his medical knowledge and his position of trust to create a murder weapon disguised as legitimate medical care. Their conspiracy had been years in the making, involving careful research, systematic preparation, and exploitation of the deepest forms of personal and professional trust. But their scheme had ultimately failed because they'd underestimated the investigative skills of their intended victim, and had grown overconfident about their ability to deceive someone whose career involved detecting exactly the type of crime they were planning. The phone call I'd overheard hadn't been a casual conversation about murder. It had been the final coordination meeting for a conspiracy that would have ended my life, while making Elena and Marcus wealthy through my death. Sometimes the greatest protection against betrayal comes from the professional skills that the betrayers themselves helped you develop. Elena had taught me to be suspicious of everyone by asking detailed questions about my investigation method. Ironically, her interest in learning how to commit insurance murder had made me more skilled at detecting the exact conspiracy she was planning against me. The secret pact that was supposed to destroy my life forever instead destroyed the lives of the two people who'd been closest to me, and proved that sometimes the best defense against sophisticated criminals is being an even more sophisticated investigator.